that program. I think we're the only lawyer referral service program that was able, or that did anything like that.
I'd like to sneak in as well, if I may. I think for me, it's moments like this, because this is an opportunity to see some of my friends, some of whom who are out of the country who are on this call, and also just to see students, former students who are now attorneys out there doing all that they do, and seeing them who are in leadership roles, but also just participating in this capacity. I think for me, every year I get to attend, I get to be in graduation every year, except for COVID year. So it's always an exciting time to see people make it through the law school experience, and particularly seeing students from the beginning to the end of it, to the point that they're able to become attorneys. And when I'm able to attend swearing-ins, I think that is the most exciting aspect of anything that I do, and I live for it.
I'll jump in. My name is Helen Walker. I've been the front of court director since December of 2019, and I've worked for the county for almost 20 years. And since being the director, I've had great pleasure watching many fellow employees actually retire. And I believe that that is a testament to public service. People like Harry Moxley, the former director, served the county for 28 years. Lou Belzer, who was a supervisor, served the county for 18 years. Alan Dow, a court services officer, for 19 years. And the list goes on. We've had many retirements. But again, I do believe that the length of time that the employees served truly shows their dedication to public service. And that is exactly why employees seek government jobs and look to retire out from those jobs.
Thank you guys so much for that. Jody, you were the only one who didn't say anything. I want to make sure if you have something that you want to add to this.
I do. I just wanted to let everyone else go first and steal their answers. No, I'm just kidding. So a lot of what everybody said resonated with me, because I wear various hats for the State Court Administrative Office, but this past year and a half, just watching, we work with court leaders all over the state to solve problems and increase access to courts. And we saw leaders like Nicole just excel during the most stressful time, and not only increase access to their courts, but really thrive professionally and address other major issues too, like expungement, like access, like transparency, like diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we get to be part of all of those initiatives, and it's just exciting. I mean, I share Goldie's excitement about just being able to talk to students about what it is we do. So thank you.
And piggybacking off of that, I do see your question in the chat, Rashida. We are definitely going to answer it, I promise. But we wanted to ask you all on the panel, what does your day-to-day sort of look like? You know, the things that you do every day, to kind of give everyone a little bit of a better idea of what your job entails. And I'm going to pick on you first, Ms. Evans, because I see you nodding your head.
I was not in agreement with the question, but okay. The day-to-day life of a court administrator. So let me explain a little bit about what an administrator does. I am a district court administrator, which is different than Helen's position, because we both work for the courts, which is also different than Jody's position, who is over the state court administrator office, who is basically the overseer of all courts in the state of Michigan. So my little district court in East Lansing, I manage the daily operations. Basically, we handle everything except get on the bench and rule. But who knows? And so my job entails, the personnel, budget, technology, which has been, pretty huge during the pandemic, making sure that we're utilizing resources that help our court users, whether they are litigants, whether they are attorneys, whether it's someone who just wants to observe, making sure that we are following court rules and that we are as transparent as we can be. Certain cases like non-public cases, we're making sure that those cases that information is protected. A typical day, I hate to say I operate in crisis mode, but really it's I come in with the list, and most of the time I leave home with that same list because you just deal with what happens during the day. We really, as administrators, we're there to manage whatever situation comes up so that the judges can focus on the cases that are before them. So that can be anything from equipment breaking down, that can be if there's a customer that needs additional assistance and a senior level clerk can't assist, then we'll continue to go up the chain, and they'll come and get me if needed. And so it runs the gamut. It really does. But what I can tell you, I've been the administrator since 2016. I've been in the court system, in particular with this court, for over 20 years. And Helen talked about, the job being a good job. I'm here because that job changed, and either that job grew with me or I grew with that job. But there was always an opportunity that I took advantage of because the opportunity was there, and I wanted to exceed or succeed in this field.
Thank you. Who's next?
Jody.
Oh, look at you, Nicole. I've had the privilege of working with Nicole for a few years now, right? I think so. So thank you for referring the question to me. You may have seen my poker face when you asked the question. It's because the response is there is no typical day, but that is one of the things I like. And so in my role as Senior Director of Administration, I'm responsible for HR for the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, and State Court Administrative Office, also providing guidance to the trial courts when they need it. Also security, finance, and our regional operations. So our teams that oversee the different regions of the state that oversee administration of the court. So that involves, solving different problems that come in from around the state, that come from employees, and really trying to think of creative solutions that are in line with the legal precedent that is at play, or even determining, whether we need new rules or policies. So it's actually really exciting. I possibly made that sound a little bit dry, but if you think about it, just like Nicole's job in district court, the decisions she makes to keep the court running so that the judges can serve the public and that the clerks can serve the public effectively impact individual lives every single day. And so even though some of the impacts seem small, they have a domino effect. Leaving the court feeling heard and with a good outcome, or feeling like the process was fair, expands trust in the justice system. And so just to be any part of that is really exciting. And I feel like everything that I have the privilege or opportunity to do for and with the courts does that. Either sometimes on a very small scale and sometimes on a large scale, like coming up with safety plans for the courts during the pandemic so we could keep the doors open to everybody. It's really exciting, and I could not love it more. Do I get to pick somebody?
Go for it.
Okay, Goldie.
Thank you. I guess I'll follow Nicole's lead. A little bit of what I do work at a law college. So there's that. I'm an administrator in the sense that I work with students within the law building. And specifically, I work with students in terms of gaining the skills necessary to be successful in law school, but then also as they prepare for the bar exam. So that's a little bit of what that looks like. So being on theme, there's no such thing as a typical day. Every day is an adventure and a new opportunity to experience new things or similar things in different ways. I like to tell everybody at any moment, I might be a first-year law student, a second-year law student, a third-year law student, and studying for the bar exam all at the same time. Just because engaging with students with various questions, also alums who are preparing for the bar exam with various questions, I'm kind of on my toes. And I also try to connect with people, I think the person that I am. So those conversations might go beyond just the scope of what we're doing academic wise or bar exam wise into who you are as a person, what your career aspirations are, what opportunities are working for you. I might push and challenge you if you provide me with too much information. So there's a little bit of everything. And I think that keeps it exciting to me, because even though there might be some similar things with changes that we have, you have to make those adjustments. If we have changes to the curriculum, if we have changes to requirements, if we have changes with us merging with big MSU and all things that come with that. So it's always exciting in that sense with all of the changes. And I think being a student affairs person, because that's what I also have a degree in that, engaging in that capacity in this environment is certainly a plus, and empowering students to advocate for themselves and empowering them to feel like they have ownership of their experience and their environment, I think is certainly very important to me. And those are things that happen on a fairly regular basis.
Thank you. Do you want to shoot it to someone next? Or does anyone else just want to jump in?
I'll jump in. I'll just say that working for the Friend of the Court is an incredible place to work. Once I started working here, I never wanted to leave or work anywhere else. Our primary goal is to help parents and children. Our job is to investigate issues pertaining to child custody, parenting time, and child support, which is very rewarding work. It can be very frustrating work sometimes. So with that, what do I do every day is deal with a very large budget. I feel like I'm a master troubleshooter sometimes, whether it's troubleshooting employee issues, troubleshooting client issues. We end up with disgruntled clients who aren't always happy with our office. And of course, I help to deal with those issues. And sometimes it's just a matter of really listening. You have to hone in on your listening skills and let someone talk, and then try to explain something to them in a manner that they can understand. We deal with budgetary issues. And then another one of our primary goals is to help judicial staff. They have questions, and our goal is to answer their questions and to help the judges. We enter orders, and it's pretty much what we do, but helping families and children is very rewarding.
Don't scare everybody with all that talk of numbers and budgets, because as you know, lawyers don't do numbers. Ms. Thomas, you're not going to get away without telling us what you do every day.
All right. It doesn't sound nearly as exciting as what the rest of you guys do. So I have two primary roles at the State Bar. Well, three, because my self-appointed role is ambassadress of the bar. So I am the only bar employee who has served, who is both a member and who has served in leadership. I was on both the Rep Assembly for 2 terms, and I served 2 terms on the Board of Commissioners. So far it's just me. And when I was on site as ambassadress, a lot of my time, okay, maybe not a lot, but some of my time was spent, wandering around the bar and talking to people. I miss you guys. So the other part of my job, I am liaison to the Public Outreach and Education Committee. We are responsible for the legal milestone that the Davis Dunnings Bar helped to sponsor last year for Frank Kelly. And we're responsible for the moot court, which is coming, or the mock trial competition, the national mock trial, which is coming to Michigan this year and next year in Kalamazoo. And my committee is responsible for reviewing, it's the outreach resources. We're reviewing all of the front-facing, public-facing materials on the State Bar's website, recommending updates or additional information. That's one role. My primary role, however, is as manager of the lawyer referral service. And that's what I do most of the day, every day. I sit here in my dining room and I watch the calls and I check the calls and I take contacts from my staff if they have questions about how something should be assigned. I take calls from the public and from attorneys and court staff. And Helen, I got that stuff for you and it's gonna be on its way today or tomorrow. I spend time, I don't have a committee. A lot of state bar things have committees. I don't have a committee to help me. So I reach out to attorneys for coding questions or to create areas of practice. I have a modest means program, which provides legal services for moderate income people. We just expanded that from 2 practice areas to 5. So we're growing, we're thriving. I have a staff of 4. I have 2 reps. I have a coordinator who's just below me, and I have 1 person in between them whose title I can't recall, but she has primary responsible for modest means, which has developed into a program that really requires a dedicated person for it. I want to take a second real quick to shout out a couple of people. Pam Galloway and I went to law school together. We were ace boon coon. She is currently general counsel at Wayne State. Haven't seen her in a long time. So happy she's here. And I'm gonna call out Thad, who is a descendant of, you know, one of the namesakes, the named people of this committee, and his aunt, Shauna, who was also on the call. Thad, I haven't seen you since you've been back. Glad to know you're here. I think that's it for me. That's enough.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the question that's in the chat. So it's a 2-part. What current career in the law field is there greatest need for? And can you please detail the training involved in securing such a role? So whoever feels as though they can answer that question, go right ahead.
Or we could draw straws, or we could pick on you.
I can go. So right now, the job market all over, and including legal careers, is booming. And I will speak to just, especially in the government sector, whether it's the state of Michigan or the judiciary. The judiciary had a hiring freeze for quite a while. We do not any longer. So we are going to have a lot of opportunities for roles that are legal in nature in terms of involving legal analysis. So we call them analyst roles, where you get to work on different initiatives and projects. Some can be limited to a specific court type or area. But they're really exciting because you play a role in things that definitely impact the system. We're going to have a lot of those roles coming up, even roles involving like forms development for court forms. But if you think about how many people use court forms and how important they are to every court process, and an analyst in that role gets to make the language more accessible to the public at large. So it really impacts the quality of service and everything in the judiciary. So we're going to have a lot of roles like that. But I do see, you know, even our technology roles and things like that have a legal piece to them. I mean, there is a need everywhere. So, you know, I just see that there's a need all over. Outside of state government, employment and labor relations seem to be really in demand right now.
All right. I will go to the second part of this question. What's one piece of advice you would give to someone considering a career change after the age of 40 or 50 or 25? I guess it doesn't matter. Any advice for that individual?
I'll just make a short statement, and I would just say follow your dreams, because life is too short and you spend more time working, and oftentimes you spend more time working than you do with your family. So you want to enjoy it. So follow your dreams is my advice.
I'm going to presume that you're talking about maybe a change in a field in the legal career. And so I would suggest maybe joining that section to find out more about that particular field of law. And then maybe organically, you can also find someone to mentor and help you navigate that field. Other than that, I'm going to jump back to the last question about where you might see a need. I think cannabis law maybe booming, and I'm just just looking at everything that's happening around you with everyone trying to navigate marijuana laws and those who want to start dispensaries. And then I'm going to jump forward because this is a question I know we talked about alternative careers. If you don't see it, you create it. There is, and I'll tell you a quick story. I know you've seen my bio. And so one of my hats was that I worked in I was the city clerk for East Lansing. And most of the time people recognize the city clerk's office as managing the elections. They do more than that. They're the keeper of that jurisdiction's records. They handle licensing, ironically also marijuana licensing. So the quick story is that I was on a webinar where we were talking about food trucks. And there was an individual who was like basically a hot dog vendor. And he ended up, because of and this was in Colorado, so he ended up becoming like the spokesperson for this group of food truck vendors. And they decided, either they suggested or it just naturally occurred that he decided he wanted to go to law school. So his food truck business became how he funded his way through law school. When he was done, he became their general counsel. And so it was so outside of the box. I never forgot that story because I thought, oh my gosh, the hot dog guy became the general counsel for a group that needed representation. And that's not something you would just go to law school for. This is just something that just happened. There was a need and he met that need. And once he was done with law school, he basically had a job waiting for him because a relationship had already been built. And so I would say to you, think about what is the thing that you want to do and build from there. Because the opportunity is out there. It's just how much do you want to put into it? And as Helen said, this becomes part of the work-life balance, because this is going to be what you'll be doing for over 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And so you're going to want to enjoy that. I'm stepping off my soapbox now.
Yeah, I just
It's a
want to
good
echo.
soapbox to be on.
I was just going to echo what Nicole was saying about cannabis law. We had a program last night. It was jam-packed with all of our students. So it's a huge area of interest that they're always asking about too. So I can only assume that might be a hot place. But I would say in terms of transitioning careers, whether it be something that's non-legally related to something legally related or otherwise, my 2 cents is do your homework, do your research, recognize that certain areas and locales might have different things that operate than they would in other areas. So be clear about that. And I'm thinking particularly with me being in a university, every university kind of operates a little different. And so the structures, the systems, the organizational charts, and what those titles mean can mean very different things from one institution to another. And even if we're just thinking overall. So those are things to definitely investigate and understand the implications of all of those things before you make a commitment. And understanding the salary aspects of things, the benefits and all of that, and whether that is really something you're interested in committing to. So that's my 2 cents.
And I can add 2 more cents to that. I think because as you're thinking about salary and benefits and things like that, when you make the career transition, whichever organization you join is going to try to value your compensation based on experience and things like that. And oftentimes when it's a transition, they'll start you at the bottom saying, well, you know, you don't really have experience. So the one thing you can do to get prepared for that is really think about your current role or any volunteer experience you have, any personal experiences, leadership skills you have, and think of statements, very simple statements about how those activities or skills translate into the career path or job you've identified. The more you kind of engage in that exercise and practice doing it, it'll roll right off your tongue should you get an interview. Now, for people who are making a career transition, it's often harder to get interviews right away. So the key there that I would recommend is make cold calls to contacts that you have on LinkedIn or that you have through this association or other state bar groups. It is okay, everyone's busy, but when I get a call from anybody and they want to hear like, can you tell me about your job or any openings you might have? And here's why I'm interested. I will make time. And I know so many people that we work with will also make the time. And those people are often willing to make referrals for you and get your foot in the door and leave you to do the rest. But it will definitely help, especially making a career transition later in the game.
Thank you for that. I actually have a question that I want to ask personally, just in terms of how I got into my alternative career, because I started as an attorney advisor and a decision writer, and I fell into state government doing analyst work, and now I'm a manager. How did you, for all the panelists, how did you get into your careers? Like, how did you know this was the path you wanted to take?
I can start. I didn't. I always said that if I wrote a biography, it would be titled something like, I never imagined that. I came out of law school in the early 90s during a huge depression. The big firms weren't hiring, jobs were not to be found. There were a couple of female attorneys who did a seminar on alternative legal careers back then. They had opened up a firm. And that's what they were doing, is they were connecting recent law grads with alternative careers. I think they must have ended before I graduated, however. I did not want to practice, never wanted to be a litigator. I spent the first 15 years of my career litigating. And I went from litigation to the parole board. If you knew anything about me, I've led a very sheltered life. I was very, very naive. Going to the parole board was a complete and utter shock for me. And I did that. And my next shock came when I got Snyderized, when Snyder eliminated the parole board so that he could kick me and a few other members off. That was a shock. So after that, I was out of work for a year. I went on to I couldn't find anything. I don't know how hard I was looking, because I really spent the year doing, all my kids' school parties and everything. And then I stumbled across a gig on the unemployment website for a Social Security firm, which didn't pay anywhere close to what I was making, but it looked like it was a really cushy gig, because all I'd have to do is write a brief based on information that everybody provided to me and show up at the hearing. I could do that. It ended up being a lot more than that. But it started out sounding real big. I did that for a year and stumbled across a contract position at the state bar, and that's how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. But I just kind of stumbled across everything that I've done from my first job to my last. I don't know if that helps anybody, but that's kind of how my way has gone. And I have always been open to mentoring. I have been, to this day, when I bump into law students, I'm passing out cards. I'm saying, my office is right here. Call me, stop by. I am available.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share?
I'll go ahead.
Thank you,
For me, I came to law school with the goal of being an immigration or international law attorney. And I did the immigration clinic and I was done. because I realized the emotional aspect of things, because I was sitting and watching things happening. I was like, and I was like, that is not an area that I think I would thrive in, because I would have all kinds of emotional reactions on a regular basis, which was interesting. And so I had to do a shift, and out of law school, I started doing some international law related things, which was cool, and I thought was my passion. And then it was not. I did not feel the zeal and the energy that I thought I would. And so I figured, why not go and do something else? But while I was in law school, my academic support person told me, you're really good at this. You might want to consider this type of a career. I told her, no, my mama sent me to law school to be a lawyer. I don't know what you're talking about. And so it was an interesting exchange. And then when I moved to Michigan, one of my classmates had started her own firm, and she was getting very busy with bankruptcies. So I took a lot of her family law cases, and I found that cool, and I thrived with that, which was interesting since I couldn't do immigration. And simultaneously, I went and got a master's degree in higher ed education with the thought that this might be something I wanted to do. I took on this job as an interim position for 1 year. So I was only supposed to be at Michigan State for 1 year. It is 12 years later. So you just never know what opportunities are going to present themselves, and where you're going to thrive, and what is going to drive you on a day-to-day basis. Not to say that everything is perfect. Every challenge that you have in other environments, you have them wherever you are employed, but you're able to manage and I think navigate it a little bit better when you really are into what you're doing, and you're able to overcome some of the day-to-day mundaneness or even challenges that you might encounter overall. So that's my brief story.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to share?
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll jump.
Oh, go ahead, Helen, I'm sorry.
All right. So I was a very young lawyer, and I found myself with 3 children as a single parent. I worked in a small private law firm practicing family law. I knew I always wanted to help children and families, but while working in the private law firm, I would go to the front of the court and of course represent clients. So I saw that aspect of being an attorney. But what I didn't like was that work-life balance. There were the billable hours, and you had the sheet, and you had to try to meet a certain number. And then that was a distraction for me. And then my family was a distraction, because I wanted to help children and families, but yet I wanted to spend time with my own young children. So I really struggled with that. Then there was an opening for a friend of court referee, and that to me was like the ideal job. I could finally get myself into the office sitting as a referee and help children and families on that aspect of it. And it really was kind of a lifesaver, because I didn't have the billable hours anymore. I didn't have the overhead. We didn't have to pay a secretary. There were great benefits package. You had your health insurance, you had your retirement and those things. And I will say that also as a sideline, when you're looking at jobs to apply to, don't just look at the number on the piece of paper and say, that's my potential salary, because oftentimes there are going to be step increases that are included on that. And you need to assign a value to, is there a retirement that's included? Are there health insurance benefits that are going to be included? Is there leave time? You get paid vacation days. So when you factor in that base salary plus the step increases, and you look at what the benefits package is, it really is worth so much more working for the government than what you might see as a bottom line on a piece of paper when you're looking at the job. But for me, that was a lifesaver. Working for the friend of the court, I got to serve and help children and families. I didn't have to worry about overhead. I didn't have to worry about that billable hours anymore. I had regular hours. I didn't have clients calling morning, noon, and night. I wanted to help families, but again, I wanted to spend time with my family. So for me, it was a lifesaver. I didn't have to pay malpractice insurance. That was covered by the county. And then there's also one other benefit. There is that student loan forgiveness program. And so many people are able to take advantage of that when you work for, state or federal government. So that was another benefit. So that's how I ended up where I am. And like I said, once I entered the front of the court, I never wanted to leave. 20 years later, I'm still here.
Thank you, Jody.
I definitely want to echo the points Helen made about public student loan forgiveness, other benefits you might not consider, and definitely the value of not having billable hours. Sorry to all you law firm owners out there. But how I got or became interested in working for the Supreme Court, it really is following passion, and that's like sounds so cliche, but really I started out as an appellate attorney because I had clerked for an attorney you might know, Lisa Speaker, in Lansing, and just really loved appellate work. And in doing appellate cases, I got to see these transcripts and court records and be involved with the clients and see how different parts of the court process affected the clients and tell their story. And I was in love with it, absolutely in love with it. And then I really developed a passion for child welfare law and family law, doing that practice. And my mentor, Lisa, encouraged me to become involved with the State Bar of Michigan Children's Law section. And I did. And through that, I learned that there's this whole part of the Supreme Court that does child welfare and juvenile law and friend of the court activities. And they impact every court in the state and come up with policy and really dig in on a deeper level. And a position came open for a juvenile analyst, and it just felt so right. And I started 10 years ago as a child welfare analyst, and just continued expanding through just continued learning. Like, what else does this organization do? Like, who else can we help? Who, it was just that, and just following that, and kind of what Nicole said earlier about, kind of make your own way. Sometimes when you're in a role and you learn more about the organization and you express to people, hey, I'd really like to try this, or I'd really like to do that. In the right organization, you're able to do that and really, follow your passion. So I hope that answers your question.
Definitely. Nicole, would you like to share?
So if I wrote a book, it would probably be titled The Crooked Path, because it was not a linear decision. I did not start off wanting to become a lawyer. In fact, I went to school for journalism. I was going to be a journalist, and I'm not even going to date myself with a comic strip that I was going to model myself after. But what I learned in terms of doing research, which I found out way after the fact, is that journalists pay peanuts. And I had a young child, and so I needed to redirect my priorities. And so I actually began working for the court. And I started off as their frontline staff. And while working there and interacting with the public, I really felt the need to want to engage in a different way. And so I actually returned to school and received my master's in public administration, because this is a government, or it's a court, but it's public. This is public. And so my goal was to become a probation officer in that court. I'm in the district court, and I relish the district court because what I discovered about myself is that I'm very grassroots, and I like to be connected to the community in whatever way I can do that. And with the court and with my interaction, my thought was, I can do more to help the people who come into our court. And so by becoming a probation officer, I felt like I was in the right place to help people redirect where they are in their lives. And I'll tell you, I was tough. I was tough, but I was tough because of my own experiences. And my thought is, we're not going to belabor what got you here. You're here. Now let's take this and go from there so that you can be successful. But that success is going to be on you. It's going to be entirely dependent on you. It won't. I'll help, I will assist, I'll give you the tools, I'll give you the support you need, but if I can't want it more than you. So that was kind of my spiel. I can't want it more than you. And it's still that way. As an administrator, I have a different approach because there's staff that I want to see develop. And so now my investment is in their professional development. So jumping backwards, so from becoming a probation officer, I became the supervising probation officer. And when you're a PO, you're in the courtroom and you're before the judge and you're acting as prosecutor, and you're acting as defense, and you're acting as counselor, and you're acting as collection. And so you're wearing all of these hats. And so law school just became it just seemed like the next natural step for me. And so, you know, Rashida's question I thought was just so appropriate. I was a later in life attorney. And my thought was that, okay, once I'm done, I'm going to go out and practice. What I come to realize, let me tell you how the things that you don't know. And I'm so glad for this forum, the things you don't know. Don't go to school full time and work full time. I did that, not knowing that full time. I took 12 credits because in undergrad, it was, I think 15 is what's considered full time, maybe 12. In law school, it's nine credits, 300 pages to read each night. Yeah, so I did that. I did that because I didn't know I wasn't supposed to. So that should give you some insight in my personality. Once I get focused on a goal, I'm all in. And I did, and I completed that. So now I am an administrator. As I said, now I get to help assist the judges run the courtroom. I get to help the staff develop to their full potential. Because let me tell you, you all interact with the court in some form or fashion. And you can't tell me that frontline staff is not valuable to you. And I tell them that it's, you know, as much as they're willing to listen to me. After a while, it just becomes corny. But, you know, the point of that is that the role is important. Their role is important to you. That role is important to them. That role is important to the public. And so to have what I call not just competent, but a compassionate staff, that really is the goal. And that's really what I'm looking for, because this pandemic really changed how courts operate. And it really provided us an opportunity to reimagine how we serve the public. So the fact that we can do things like expungement clinics or use technology where we're creating virtual access during a shutdown, that's not something that's way outside of a traditional role of a courtroom. And so, you know, the judiciary has changed because of that. And that's just very exciting to me, because I can see the future of where courts are going to be operating remotely, which also serves the public in that now you don't have to think of all of these other concerns that you may have, taking time off for your job or for school, or finding a babysitter or finding parking. Now you really have the opportunity to be heard, to go in and state your case and be heard by that courtroom without having all of these other, you know, ancillary issues that you would have. That is all part of going to court. I hope I answered the question.
This isn't in response to a question, but this call and the fact that you guys are on this call is, from a historical perspective, is completely amazing. Now, in preparation for this, I dug out my resume. So I know that 20 years ago, I was president of this organization. 30 years ago, I passed the bar. When I came to practice in Lansing, there were 5 Black women in private practice. I can tell you who they were. Me, Shauna, Stephanie Coleman, who just passed away, Rosie Rowan, who I never saw do any practicing, but did have lunch with me once. And what's her face that got disbarred, whose name escaped me. So there's 5. So there were just 5 of us in private practice. I can remember sitting in the Eaton County Courthouse in the attorney chair, waiting for my hearing to start. And I hear somebody walk around talking about that Lauren Thomas isn't even here yet, blah, 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 blah. I've been sitting there, but this little young Black chick couldn't have been the attorney. I mean, these were the kinds of things that we experienced. So to have all these Black women on the bench, to have us doing things in the community, in practicing law and in alternative careers, y'all just can't imagine how proud I am of what you all do and how we are succeeding and moving on. I just had to give that little historical bent in there. And Sean is gone, so she can't even speak to it.
We'll make sure to let her know what you said about the beginnings and about being one of the 5. I will tell you now, still, sometimes you go to court and they're waiting for you and you're standing right there. That has not necessarily changed yet, but we're working on it. We're getting there. We're getting there. As we look to wrap up, we just wanted to ask everybody, we know that everybody, belongs to their local bar association, and you may belong to a lot of other organizations. And so we just wanted you to shout out some of the organizations that you belong to that help to support the community, that help to support young lawyers, that help to support retiring lawyers. One of these days, God willing, retirement. So if you would like to just shout out those organizations and let everybody know maybe how they can get involved with them before we go to our wrap up.
So I'm going to
Davis Dunning's Bar Association.
Absolutely. I'm going to shout out my job because the State Bar's Lawyer Referral Service is a wonderful opportunity, particularly for young attorneys starting out practice, and in terms of our Modest Means program for people who want to give back. Wonderful for that. I'm also going to shout out the Southside Community Coalition because I have been on the board for, I just realized, 14 years. And we are doing wonderful things on the South Side. We are, we have this whole greening project. If you don't know anything about us, we are right by the Quality Dairy on Pleasant Grove and Holmes. Check us out.
Ms. Thomas, if you will also shout out the Resolution Center, because they do have those grants for mediators.
And now that Nadia has told you that, yes, she and I are on the board for the Dispute Resolution Services Center. I am only recently on the board, so what she just said.
If you want to become a court-appointed mediator, there are programs that the Dispute Resolution Center has out there, and they are offering grants for those who can't afford to take the course, and that is out there. And I recommend that anybody who can in the area take advantage of that.
I'm going to say something very simple, not necessarily specifically law related, but lots of people out here with food insecurities, including students. So if you can support a food bank at a university, at a college, at a law school of some sort, please do that. And then also just off of what Lauren was saying, visibility, presence, showing up when we're looking for folks to do things. So students can see themselves in you or see the possibilities that are available, because it's a real situation in terms of the journey and the experiences that they feel, and feeling isolated and having the same experiences of being maybe one or two in your entire class or section that looks like you, and still enduring and dealing with the challenges that y'all have mentioned. So thank you.
There's a few, but I want to raise just from Goldie's point about, the representation. Having this panel, this is huge. This is huge. I went to something similar on alternate legal careers, and it was hosted or facilitated by, her name was Kim Elaine Walton. Some of us from way back in the day may know, and those legal careers were, something as simple as like sports agents. I'm telling you to think ahead, because during this pandemic, there's a bunch of YouTube stars that need representation. So you definitely, you got to think outside the box. I used to be a former board member for the Dispute Resolution Center. I think Lorena and I were mediators at the same, in fact, Lorena was a mediator at my court. And that's, just a great opportunity to get yourself noticed, to be visible, because you're assigned to a court. And so people come to see you. And then sometimes those clients, sometimes it will result in a clientele for you. Now for the mediation dispute resolution that we did, it was civil. And so it's so, small claims type cases, but still, we're talking a start. if you are in criminal defense work, or if you're interested in like the legal services of South Central Michigan, they partnered with our court to hold the virtual expungement clinic. This was, talk about a labor of love. It's like I can't imagine the number of hours I put into that, but I swear it's like well, I did do it again, but I mean, it because I enjoyed it so much, and it was just so rewarding that, a Saturday or evenings, that was nothing. So NAACP, the local branch, has actually allocated $50,000 towards legal representation for pro bono attorneys. It's called a low bono opportunity. And so if you're interested in doing expungement work, reach out to Legal Services of South Central Michigan, Sarah Monroe. That's MUNRO. Trying to think. Let's see, Food Bank is a favorite. There is a bill regarding the period tax, which impacts us. The elimination on taxes for feminine hygiene products. This is not a choice for many of us to have to purchase those products. And so the fact that those items are taxed as opposed to things like Viagra, it's just baffling to me. But as Loren said, there are times where you're working within a certain social construct that you have to get past. What's their name? Shoot. It's oh my God, I went to the women's,
Black
about
women lawyers.
the period. I can't believe I forgot.
If you think of it in the next few minutes, put it in the chat and put
I
Miss
sure
Monroe's
will. I
name
sure
in the
will,
text too,
Nadia.
so we'll
And I
have
know you
her
want to wrap up.
correct
So
information. Well,
Yep.
look, I don't very often get to spend my lunch hour talking about Viagra and feminine hygiene. So there is that. I want to thank you all for being here this afternoon. Before we go, we just got a couple of housekeeping issues that we want to take care of. Referee Porter's on the line. He also has an opportunity for grant programs for people who are interested in participating in family court. So if he just wanted to get on right quick and say a few things about that. You are on mute.
I'm sorry, it's my first time using Zoom. All right, well, thanks for having me. Thanks, Nadia. And when I've been sitting here for an hour eating my apple and my peanut butter, and it seems to me the common thread is everybody goes to law school. And I think at this point, everybody should reflect back and recognize the fact that it's one of the greatest general broad educations and degrees that we can ever have. And no matter what career path you choose, you're going to be probably more than qualified. If you don't want to practice law, you don't want to be a litigating attorney, you could probably walk into the local Goodwill and within 3 weeks end up managing the place or the local Speedway station. So you all have great educational opportunities out there for whatever career path you want to do. The common thread for everybody, it seems, for the majority of people anyway, is, and I've looked at this hard over the past 30 some years of my working career, your first job really kind of defines what sets you out on your path. Your path is never going to be straight, but your first job opens up those other opportunities for you, and you fall into something else. And you may have never thought you'd be at the Michigan State University, but here you are 12 years later, just because those doors keep opening up and you keep developing those talents, whether that's with the state bar, whether that's with the state court administrator's office, whether that's within a court. You all have very similar stories. But my story is, if you had told me 35 years ago that, and by the way, Lauren, you mentioned the 5 Black lawyers, that was right when I was starting. So I knew all those people, fortunately. But if you had told me that many years ago that I would be doing court-appointed panel work, representing, high need, low represented individuals in the community, I would have said that's not what I went to law school for. Well, that was part of the law firm that I worked for, and I was a litigating attorney. And then if you had told me while I was doing that, that I'd have opportunities in the federal system, I would have said, well, I'm not the kind of guy who deserves to be up in the federal system. And yet I did that. And I was one of the youngest lawyers that had that opportunity. And then if you were to tell me while I was doing all that, eventually someone's going to appoint me to a bench and work directly under a bunch of judges, I would have said, who in the world's going to hire me? So you never know what's going to lead to one thing or the other. But I think why I was brought in to say a few words today is not to share my personal story, which is honestly quite boring and honestly more fortuitous than any skill I actually have. But I now am in charge of all of the court-appointed panels, panel attorneys that provide services to abuse and neglect parents and children in Ingham County. And it's a tremendous job. And the panel that I have is a really well-rounded group of attorneys. And I'm here to open the door for someone who might be looking for either something a little different, something a little on the side, if you have a single shingle, or you're just starting out. This gives you an opportunity, and it worked very well for me. And no one's more surprised that I'm here, you know, in my later years of being an attorney, but that's where my story started from. So if anybody's interested in that, I heard the word low bono. That's very interesting. I think maybe that was that from you, Lauren?
From Nicole Evans.
Is that Nicole? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting kind of spin on that. This is kind of what we do. It's not a high paying thing, but you are afforded the opportunity to develop new skills, meet new people, and it certainly opens doors for you. And we can pair up with mentoring. The one thing in the short time that I've been exposed to the Davis-Dunnings Bar Association, I was years ago, and then I kind of dropped out. Now I'm back because of my position too. But you know, I went to the mixer 3-4 weeks ago, and what stunned me is there were attorneys there that you all would consider senior attorneys that I hadn't seen in years, and they remembered me, but they were talking to the younger people. And that's that sense of mentorship, that camaraderie, and those are where those doors of opportunity get presented to you all. So I just want to make myself available as one of those doors as well. So I know Ernstie's got my contact information. I know that flyer was sent out there. If anybody has any interest, just reach out. We're more than happy to talk to you and tell you what that's all about. Thank you very much, Nadia.
Thank you so much, Referee Porter, Goldie Pritchard, Lauren Thomas, Helen Walker, Nicole Evans, and Jody Latusik in her absence. Thank you all so much for participating today in our panel. We truly appreciate you taking the time to share with everyone about your lives, about your stories, and about your careers. And if anyone has any questions for these amazing panelists, they should definitely feel free to reach out. Their contact information is on the flyer, we promise. And if not, don't worry, we'll get it to you. We are going to send things over to our Madam President to give a couple of brief announcements, and we hope to see you all tonight at our general body meeting.
Yeah, just in addition to what Nadia said, thank you, everyone. I did drop Mr. Porter's email, but if you need more information, feel free to reach out to DDBA. Thank you for everyone for attending. And we also wanted to acknowledge some of the judges. I know that they had to step away. Judge Shauna Dunnings, we wanted to thank her for participating, but also introducing us to some of the panelists, which we really appreciate. And Judge Cynthia Ward. If you're interested in joining DDBA and becoming a member, we can send you an application. Our email is executiveboard@davisdunningslaw.com. I'm sure it was probably in the chat as well. And we can also send you a copy of the newsletter, which has our upcoming events. And we do have a general body meeting. They did drop that in the chat as well this evening at 6 o'clock. And again, thank you everyone for attending today and for supporting DDBA as an organization. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, everybody.
You.
You guys are amazing. You rock.